Before love turned into venom, it was my cure. Before Ethan's name became ash in my mouth, it was the only prayer I knew. In Chicago, where the wind off Lake Michigan cuts your skin and reminds you how small you are in the world, I had found my shelter in him, my own private infinity. I was Sarah, a 26-year-old designer who painted life with the colors of anxiety, always afraid that the best things were too fragile to last. My father was a ghost, a half-told story by my mother, and that absence was a cold hole in my chest that I had spent my entire life trying to fill. And then, Ethan appeared. At 28, he was a musician with eyes that held the melancholy of 1,000 blues songs and a smile that promised everything would be okay. His dark hair would fall over his forehead when he focused on his guitar, and his hands, which could create such complex melodies, were the same ones that held mine with a simplicity that calmed my soul. He also carried the same emptiness as me. Raised by his mother, his father was an unanswered question, a shadow that haunted him. This shared wound was our first bond. We didn't just fall in love with the person we were, but with the promise that, together, we could finally become whole. Our apartment in Lincoln Park was a sanctuary. The walls were covered with my art, and the air was filled with the notes that escaped his guitar. I remember one October night, the rain hitting the window and the city outside a blur of lights and sounds. We danced in the living room, barefoot on the rug, to a song he had written for me. The lyrics spoke of two lost halves who met to form a single soul. In that moment, my head on his chest, feeling the vibration of his voice, I was certain it was destiny. The universe had conspired somehow to heal two broken children, uniting them in an adult, unshakable love. "You know what I was thinking?" he whispered into my hair, interrupting the dance. My mom gave me one of those DNA test kits for my birthday, to find out my origins, my roots. She said maybe it would help me close some chapters. He looked at me with a rare vulnerability. I thought, maybe we could do it together. Find out where we came from, so we'll know exactly where we're going. The idea electrified me. It was more than curiosity. It was a journey, a chance to fill in the blank pages of our past together. It felt like the most natural step in the world. That night, sitting on the sofa with a laptop between us, we ordered another kit online. We were euphoric, full of hope, and embracing an intimacy that felt sacred. The white box with the genetics company's logo arrived a week later, looking like a gift from the future. Little did we know we weren't about to unravel the past, but to execute our future. That small box didn't contain answers. It contained a sentence. The act of collecting the saliva samples was almost ceremonial. We sat at the kitchen table, the two white kits open before us as if they were artifacts of an unknown future. There was a lightness in the air, a childlike excitement. We laughed as we swabbed our cheeks, joking about what bizarre ancestral secrets we might discover. "What if I'm descended from Vikings?" Ethan said, forcing a scowl. "That would explain my beard." I replied that if I discovered I had royal blood, I would demand to be treated like a queen. They were innocent jokes, cast over an abyss we couldn't perceive. We sealed the tubes, put them in the boxes, and walked hand in hand to the post office. As he deposited the packages in the collection box, Ethan kissed me. "To our past," he said, "and to our future." The weeks that followed were, in retrospect, the calm before the storm. It was perhaps the happiest period of my life. Waiting for the results became the backdrop to our days, a promise of something more that bound us even tighter. We had dinner at his mother's house, a sweet woman with a tired smile named Mary. She watched us from the head of the table, her eyes shining. "It's amazing," she said at one point, as Ethan was telling a story, and I laughed. "You two fit together in a way I've never seen. It's like you were carved from the same stone." The phrase floated in the air, beautiful and poetic. Today it haunts me as the cruelest of prophecies. Finally, on a gray Tuesday, the email arrived. I was working from home, trying to focus on a design project, when the notification flashed on my phone. Your ancestry DNA results are ready. My heart skipped a beat. I yelled for Ethan, who was in the bedroom tuning his guitar. He came running, an expectant smile on his face. We sat together on the sofa, the same place where we had ordered the tests, the laptop on my lap. My hands were shaking a little. "Ready?" I asked. He took my free hand. "Always ready with you." If this story has touched you so far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the ending. I clicked the link. The page loaded, vibrant with colored graphs and percentages. My results first. A mix of European origins, mainly Irish and German. Nothing surprising. We laughed and explored the map. Next, we opened Ethan's profile. His composition was slightly different, with a strong Scandinavian heritage. "Vikings," I joked, trying to ease the tension that had settled on my shoulders. We were so focused on our ethnicity that we almost ignored the other tab. A tab called DNA Matches. It was Ethan who clicked, out of pure curiosity. The page took a second to load. At the top, a list of names, distant relatives, third and fourth cousins. And then, we saw it. At the very top of my list, with the highest possible match, was his name, Ethan Miller. And next to it, the relationship prediction. Father. The air left my lungs. A heavy, dense silence fell upon us. That can't be right, I stammered, letting out a nervous laugh. It's a bug. A system error. It must have crossed our information because we lived together. Used the same Wi-Fi, I don't know. Ethan forced a smile, but his eyes were glued to the screen. Of course, honey. It's a mistake. Funny, huh? But it wasn't funny. A shiver ran down my spine. He opened his page. At the top of his match list was my name, Sarah Jenkins. And next to it, the relationship prediction that made the floor vanish beneath my feet. Daughter. The system, confused by our age and the enormous amount of shared DNA, had been mistaken in the only thing it could be, the nature of our kinship. I desperately clicked on the match details, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would break my ribs. And there it was, in cold, technical terms, the truth the algorithm had discovered. We shared 2,750 centimorgans of DNA. The platform offered the possibilities: father, son, full sibling, and the last option, which hovered on the screen like a death sentence: half-sibling. The love of my life was listed as my closest relative, and the world, our perfect, carefully constructed world, stopped spinning. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, dense, full of all the words we couldn't say, all the kisses that now felt poisonous, all the memories that were being rewritten in our minds like scenes from a horror movie. I pulled away from Ethan on the couch. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was a reflex, a primal repulsion. His body, which had been my safe harbor for so long, suddenly felt dangerous, forbidden. He felt it and winced, as if my withdrawal was a physical blow. The warmth that had always existed between us was replaced by a glacial cold. The laptop screen continued to glow, illuminating our pale faces with its digital, unforgiving truth. "No," was the first word Ethan could utter, his voice raw. "No. 1,000 times no. This is a lab error. Sample contamination. Anything." He got up and started pacing the room, his hands on his head, panic written on every movement. "We're going to sue them. We're going to order another test. This is impossible." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to scream, to smash the computer, to erase what we had seen. But something inside me, a cold, sharp intuition, knew that the technology wasn't lying. The similarity that everyone thought was adorable in us, the shape of our eyes, the way our hair curled in the humidity, the same discreet birthmark behind our ears, suddenly became grotesque. We spent the next few hours immersed in the internet, not as a couple, but as two forensic scientists investigating a crime scene. Our crime. We typed frantically into forums, scientific articles, discussion groups, ancestry DNA test error, false positive for half-sibling. Can a 2,750 centimorgan match be wrong? Every click, every article read was another nail in the coffin of our hope. The answer was always the same. With such a high match, the probability of error was virtually zero. Science had no doubts. We were, undeniably, first-degree relatives. The realization began to sink in, not all at once, but in painful fragments. That's when despair turned into a new kind of agony, the need to know. We needed a human confession, not just data. And there were only two people in the world who could give it to us, our mothers. I grabbed my phone, my fingers cold and trembling. Ethan stopped pacing and watched me, his face a mask of terror. "What are you going to do?" he whispered. "I'm calling my mom," I replied, my voice weak. I need to ask." I dialed the number. My mother, Carol, answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful and warm as always. "Hi, honey. What a nice surprise. Did something happen?" My stomach churned. How could I start? "Mom," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Ethan sat on the floor in front of me, his eyes fixed on mine, sharing my terror. "I need to ask you something about my father." I felt the mood on the line change instantly. My mother's tone became more cautious. "What about him, Sarah?" I took a deep breath, Ethan's words echoing in my mind about the little he knew of his father. "You told me it was a summer romance, that he was a musician. Where was this, Mom? Where did you meet?" There was a pause. "It was in Austin, Texas. I've told you this. Why all the curiosity now?" The mention of Austin sent a chill down my blood. Ethan's mother lived in Austin. "What was his name, Mom? You never told me his name." The line went dead. A silence so long I thought she had hung up. When she spoke, her voice was a strained whisper. "Why does it matter, Sarah?" Tears began to stream down my face. I looked at Ethan, who already understood. He was shaking his head slowly, tears also rolling down his cheeks. "Did he play the guitar, Mom? Did he have long dark hair? Was he in Austin in the summer of 1996? The sound that came from the other end of the line was a choked gasp, a contained sob, and then the final blow. How do you know that, Sarah?" It was a confession. The blessing of destiny that united us was, in fact, the same curse that ran in our blood. When I hung up the phone, the sound of my own sob echoed in the deadly silence of the apartment. I fell to my knees, not from weakness, but because my legs simply stopped working. The truth was a physical force, a weight crushing me against the floor. Ethan moved and knelt in front of me but didn't touch me. His arms, which had so often held me, remained at his sides, paralyzed. We looked at each other through a veil of tears, and what we saw was no longer the reflection of a great love, but the mirror of a genetic tragedy. In that instant, we stopped being Sarah and Ethan, the couple. We became the children of a man we never knew, united by a blood that had deceived us. The night that followed was the longest of our lives. The apartment, our sanctuary, transformed into a cage. The bed we shared was now forbidden territory. I grabbed a pillow and a blanket and went to the sofa, without saying a word. Every inch of distance between us was a stab wound. Lying in the dark, I heard his breathing in the bedroom and wondered if he was also wide awake, staring at the ceiling and reliving every kiss, every hug, every promise, and feeling the same nausea as me. The love that had been the foundation of my existence now felt like a transgression, a heinous error of nature. The next day, the inevitable conference happened. My mother, Carol, and Ethan's mother, Mary, agreed to a video call. Seeing them on the laptop screen, two women from different worlds, one from Chicago and one from Austin, united by a secret of almost 30 years, was surreal. Their faces were marked by shame and suffering. And then, the complete story was told, in fragments, with choked voices. They didn't know each other. They were two young women in Austin, in the summer of 1996, who fell for the same man, Daniel Miller, an itinerant musician, magnetic and irresponsible, who promised the world to both of them on different nights in different bars. He left at the end of the summer, without a trace, unaware that he had created two lives. Each of the women, upon discovering the pregnancy, made the same painful decision: to raise the child alone, protecting them from the rejection of a father who might never want to know of their existence. They buried Daniel in the past, as a youthful mistake. "I wanted to give you a better world than mine, Sarah," my mother said, crying. "I thought I was protecting you from the truth." On the other side, Mary nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted Ethan to be happy. I never imagined, never, in a million years, did I imagine this." Ethan and I watched that confession in silence, like spectators of our own origin. We felt no anger, just a deep, desolate emptiness. Our mothers weren't monsters. They were women who did the best they could with the cards they were dealt. The true villain of our story was a ghost, a man whose DNA united us in two terribly opposite ways. When the call ended, a new kind of silence settled in. It was the silence of acceptance. The denial had died. That night, we talked. We sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the space between us feeling like a canyon. "I look at you," I said, my voice trembling, "and the only thing I can see is him, his ghost, and I see my own face. I can't see you anymore." Ethan swallowed hard, his eyes red and swollen. "I know," he replied, his voice broken. "When you look at me, what do you feel, Sarah?" The question hung in the air, brutal in its simplicity. I took a deep breath, searching for the truth amidst the wreckage. "I feel love," I admitted, and the sound of the word seemed profane. "But I feel disgust for myself for feeling it. It's like my soul is sick." He closed his eyes, a single tear running down his face. "That answers the question I can't stop asking myself," he whispered. Did we love the wrong person the right way, or the right person the wrong way? Ethan's question hung between us, in the silence of our desecrated apartment. Did we love the wrong person the right way, or the right person the wrong way? In that moment, I understood the final truth. The question didn't matter. The answer wouldn't change the outcome. The love we felt was real, the most real and pure emotion of my life. But our blood, our biology, was an older, more powerful truth, and it demanded to be obeyed. There was no fighting it. The decision was silent and mutual. We didn't need a formal breakup conversation, because what we had already died on that laptop screen. What we needed to do was hold a funeral. And the funeral began the following weekend, with cardboard boxes. Dismantling our home was the most painful task I had ever executed. Every object was a small knife to the heart. The coffee mug I gave him, the photo we took on the pier, the ticket stub from our first concert together. Everything was an artifact of a life that was no longer ours. We worked in silence most of the time. When our arms brushed in the narrow hallway, we recoiled as if we'd been shocked. The love that defined us became the barrier that separated us. On the last night, with the apartment almost empty, Ethan sat on the floor with his guitar. He didn't play our song. He played a new melody, without lyrics, full of dissonant notes and a profound sadness that seemed to echo what we felt. "I'm leaving Chicago," he said, without looking at me. "I can't stay here. Every street, every corner, has you in it." I nodded, unable to form words. It was the right thing to do. We needed an ocean of distance between us to start breathing again. 6 months passed. 6 months of a heavy, necessary silence. I moved to a tiny studio on the other side of the city. I kept working, painting, trying to find color in a world that seemed to have turned gray. There were days when the pain was so physical I could barely get out of bed. There were nights when I woke up looking for him beside me. But slowly, very slowly, the grieving began to change. The acute pain gave way to a chronic melancholy, a scar on the soul that I was learning to carry. Ethan moved to Portland. I found out through his mother, who called mine from time to time. They too were building a strange, fragile bridge over the abyss of the past. One day, browsing the internet, I saw a video from a local bar in Portland. And there he was, on stage. Thinner, with longer hair, and a beard that made him look older. The song he sang was beautiful and desolate. It spoke of a map that led to a treasure that was also a trap. It spoke of finding your other half and discovering it was only your own reflection. In that moment, I didn't feel the pain of lost love. I felt pride. He had survived. We had survived. Last week on my birthday, my phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. It was just 3 words. "Happy birthday, little sister." I stared at the word, "little sister," for a long time. It was strange, clinical, but it was also, for the first time, the truth. A truth that perhaps one day we could learn to live with. I replied, my fingers steady. "Thank you, Ethan." The love we had was buried, but something new, fragile, and uncertain was beginning to sprout from the ashes. Not a romance, not a friendship, but a family. The strangest, saddest family in the world. This story shows us how unpredictable life can be, and how people are forced to deal with the most difficult truths. What did you think of Sarah and Ethan's decision? Leave your opinion here in the comments. We love reading each of your perspectives. And if this narrative moved you, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to not miss any new stories. Tell us which city you're watching from. Hugs and see you in the next video.